did I do that? Do I actually care what those people think? As a human, I think you think a lot of shit on a daily basis.
How you would describe yourself?
I guess to an extent I'm pretty strategic and methodical about how I think about things and how, each move on the chessboard will ultimately get me to where I want to go.
I always like to observe people, just seeing what happens like in crises.
Well, to give context, July last year we did 335,000 in revenue. This July we're just under 1.8 million. I think this financial year will hit somewhere between 20 and 25. Our 3-year goal was 50 and our 5-year goal was 100. The thing that I was trying not to do was to give like the media and all that type of stuff any attention. The issue was lots of people saw this in the media and they thought, fuck, why would we work with these guys? Like, look what the media's saying about them. But all I was focused on was, who gives a fuck?
If you're the CEO running a multi-billion-dollar company, like, you aren't free. Why do you want it so much?
Some of it's ego, some of it's chip on the shoulder, a lot of it's proving it to myself, and then it's also addictive.
What's the hardest thing you've had to do in order to become the person you are today?
That's a good question. The hardest thing I've had to do to become the person I am today.
Cheers, brother.
Is this filtered water?
It's organic water.
Organic.
Welcome, Sonny Boy.
It's good to be here, mate. It's good to be here.
We're just talking about Chef Johnny.
Chef John, yeah.
So who's Chef John?
He's our chef, Henderson's private chef. And mate, he's just headed up to Brisbane to do a last man standing ultra marathon. And for people who don't know what that is, every hour, on the hour, 6.7 Ks with no finish. The finish is when there's no one else running except one person. So he's a bit of a weapon at it. Last one he won, I think he got to 240 Ks and then everyone else had dropped out. This one he's going for 400.
That's serious.
Heavy.
Did he inspire you for like a lot of the...
Nah, so I mean, obviously I've been running for a little while now, but it's funny how I'm seeing the team develop and the people that we're attracting to the business now are all very similar in that nature. So obviously John's a weapon. We just hired a guy, Alex, just finished running 50 Ks a day for 50 days in a row. Weapon. That's an incredible effort, 50 Ks every single day, 50 days, no days off. I'm just seeing like all the other guys, Sam, weapon, athlete, John the chef, Nick, Perry, like everyone, like Damo used to be a bodybuilder. I didn't even know that. He was just a shredded bodybuilder back in the day.
Big Damo.
So it's just cool to see like they're the kind of people now, we're attracting everyone's health, fitness.
And there's a whole level of like new discipline that I guess would get injected into the company, right? Like when you're leveling up so much with your fitness, it seems like you'd bring that that energy into what you're doing with your work, right?
For sure. And I think it's like a normal conversation now to talk about that sort of stuff, like no one's getting on the piss. And John actually said it when he started. He's like, we did our quarterly retreat. So he obviously come up to our retreat and, cooked for everyone for the 3 or 4 days up at the wedding venue. And he couldn't believe that no one drank. Because usually, retreats and offsites and stuff like that, in most companies, people are on the piss and yahooing and having fun. And I love that stuff, don't get me wrong. But yeah, he couldn't believe. I was like, fuck, so no one's drinking in the nights, and so that's cool.
It's pretty unusual that people, I guess, don't drink, right? I want to shift gears. What's the hardest thing you've had to do in order to become the person you are today?
That's a good question. The hardest thing I've had to do to become the person I am today, I would say, and I actually heard this the other day, and I was like, it's so true. It's all the things that you say no to, which is on the other side of that no, saying yes to something else. So, the person that I used to be to the person that I am right now, for people who, know me or have known me for that whole journey, like they're worlds apart. I mean, I'm still fun. I'm still loose and I have a good time, but like they're the polar opposites, right? So I think if I would have stayed the person that I was when I was growing up, would never be in the position that I am right now. So it's just realizing that I had a lot of shortcomings and I still have a lot of shortcomings, and I do a lot of things wrong and I've made a lot of mistakes, but then like continuing to actually learn from those things and going, okay, well, I won't do that again, and then growing. So it's being self-aware, right?
So it's the discipline around saying no to a lot of things that you typically would have said yes to.
Yeah, and there's still things I say yes to where I shouldn't say yes to them, right? And when this is metaphorically, it's not like you're actually saying yes to them, but it's all those little decisions you make on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis that compound over time, right? So every time you say no to something, I think it was Hormozy that said it recently, it's like it's just you saying yes to what you really want and desire. And, you know, I think the things that there's a lot of things that I've done that are hard, right? Like, but it's not like there's one thing in my life where I'm like, that's a really hard thing that I've done, and that's what's, you know, got me to, because it's all the little things that compound to a much bigger thing than just saying, you know, no or yes to one individual thing.
Yeah, which makes sense. It's like not one pivotal like experience situation. It's like a compounding effect of a lot of things that you've done.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, it's from, you know, getting booted out of school to, you know, then saying yes to saving money and buying a property as opposed to going and traveling like most of my friends did. It's then saying yes to leaving mining and getting into the it's all those little things, you know. It's saying yes to, or saying no, sorry, to getting off the piss and you know, trying to stay sober as much as I possibly could. All of that stuff is the stuff that actually compounds and I guess builds you into the person, or builds me into the person that I am now. And I guess there's going to be 1,000,001 of those decisions as I move through life, for sure.
You're building a big profile online, right? A lot of people, you know, obviously are just getting to know you through, you know, social media. But, you know, who is Jack Henderson? Like, for people who haven't met you, they see you online. Like, I'm curious to know, like, how you would, you know, describe yourself.
Yeah, so I think Jack Henderson, to his core, is someone who knows exactly what he wants in life, and you know, is very, he's very serious about getting it. You know, like there's obviously a facade, like I'm fun, I say, you know, things, and I think people who are around me a lot of the time, and Sam Black, he always calls me out on this all the time. We're just at a conference last week, and obviously I'm meeting people for the first time, and he's like, fuck, I reckon so many people when they first meet you, they're like, who the fuck is this bloke? Because I come across, you know, a little bit, I don't know, not abrasive, but like not giving a fuck and, you know, all the rest of it. But I guess a part of that is a bit of a front, you know. It's like you want to be someone who's memorable. I bring a lot of energy a lot of the time to conversations. But, yeah, I'm very, very serious about, you know, what I want in life. I'm very clear about what I want in life. And, you know, I guess to an extent I'm pretty strategic and methodical about how I think about things and how, you know, each move on the chessboard will ultimately get me to where I want to go. So that's at the core who I am.
Why do you want it so much? Like, does it stem back how you grew up? Did something happen? Like, 'cause I mean, obviously, I know you well, and you work so hard, not just in terms of like meetings you show up to in a day, but just how you think and you know, the impact that you want to have. And I guess my question is just around like why do you know, you're a young guy, like why do you want it so much?
I think there's multitude of reasons, right? Like some of it's ego, some of it's chip on the shoulder, a lot of it's proving it to myself. You know, I'm one of those people who, when I think or say something, I really want to be able to say, well, you're not just someone who says it or thinks it, you're actually someone who executes and makes it happen. And then it's also addictive. You know, like when you start on a journey and what you think was impossible when you started all of a sudden becomes something that is very attainable and you've achieved it, and then all of a sudden the next thing you think is impossible, and the next, like you just get addicted to that chase. And I guess there's downsides to that as well, right? Because it's like strive and never arrive. But at the same token, you know, I really want to know what it feels like to grow a multi-billion-dollar company and have, you know, thousands of people, and you know, I want bigger problems. I always say that I want to have bigger problems.
I love that, bigger problems. You said the word before, don't give a fuck. I was on the phone to someone yesterday talking about you around authenticity and talking about your brand and how you're building a profile, and what came up in that conversation was like that you don't give a fuck. And I said in response that I was like, yeah, well, he's just being authentic. He's being who he is. And most people are trying to be who they're not, right? And so does that just come naturally to you, just to show up and just be who you are and just be raw?
Yes and no. I think it's something I've developed. Like it's changed a lot. You know, I think especially since I started doing content and I've gotten into the property industry, I've been through like different phases or I guess a different, when I first started, I was like, in suits and all that type of stuff because I was trying to fit into that like real estate Eastern Suburbs mold. And then I was like, what the fuck am I doing this? Like, I don't care. And the more confident and comfortable I got in myself, that's when I was really like, well, and also I started to get reinforcement from like the more I started to act like Jack, the better everything started to go, so it's been a process. And there's still elements of me now where I'm like, there's still, I think everyone struggles with it, right? But I know for myself, there's some times where I do things and people might think from the outside he doesn't give a fuck, he's being authentic, but then I'll go and reflect and go, fuck, why did I say that? Or why did I act like that? Like, that's not really me. So I still juggle with it every single day. But for sure, like the more, like for one the other day, for example, and this has got to do with content, I was doing a React video. It was like a guy getting interviewed on the street, some sort of lefty from the inner west about like, there's these people who go like, hey, what's your name? What do you do? How much have you got? How much savings have you got? And there's this guy's like, oh, I'm 35 and I've got $600 in the bank. And I'm like, I watched that video, and I was like, what an idiot. That's what I thought. So I wasn't thinking, and I did this React video, and I was just in the moment. I was fired up, and I just roasted this bloke. I was like, what the fuck? You're like 35 years old, you've been working for 15 years, you've saved a grand total of fucking $57 compound that out. Anyway, and I forgot about it, right? Because I film the content, and then I go on with my day. And then went to sleep a week later in the Gold Coast, woke up in the morning and had all these messages from people like, hey, man, you should take that video down. Like, and then, I was like, fuck, at the time, I was like, fuck me. Anyway, I took it down. And then I thought to myself, like, fuck, why did you do that? Like, is that really you? Or you, like, you get caught up in the authenticity part, right? On that not giving a fuck part. So I think there's a balance of actually saying what you think and what you feel while also still being respectful. But definitely helps. Definitely helps.
That seems like a challenge, what you just experienced in terms of that situation, because there's a part of me which I feel like you're like just speaking your truth.
Yeah.
You're just calling it out, right? But then there's obviously the audience that are following you, and you got all those messages where people are roasting you. But then, like, I guess it all comes down to like, do you really care?
That's right, and that was, I guess, what I was getting at is then that's when I really like got rid of it, and I was like just reflecting with myself. I was actually running in the morning. I was like, fuck, why did I do that? Like, do I actually care what those people think? Should I have? Was there benefit in putting and saying that type of stuff? Because like as a human, I think you think a lot of shit on a daily basis, right? Like just random shit because our brains are fried. But then projecting all of that to everyone else out there has positives and negatives. But at the same token, like, yeah, because I'm so confident of where I'm going, I'm like, fuck, you're either on the journey or you're not on the journey. If you're not on the journey, then sucks to be you. That's how I think.
So 4 years ago, right? I think it was around 4 years ago. We had a conversation where you were talking to me about, your content strategy. I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk specifically that was influencing you around like just being consistent with content.
Yeah.
I was a bit naive. I was like, oh, no, like.
You were slapping the lip in Byron, that's why.
Yeah, I was surfing. But I saw, I guess you saw the future with you and content, and you stuck to it. And then I kind of did a bit of a deep dive recently in the buyer's agent sector, specifically around people who have posted consistently, drive high engagement, and also like provide serious value in terms of their content. And kind of the analysis that I kind of did was I feel like you're like leading it in the buyer's agent sector across Australia, across all those.
For sure.
Like in terms of consistency, like continuity, engagement, value, but also the fourth, which a lot of people don't know, which obviously I know because we know each other, is that a lot of your business now, the majority of all your business comes through
organic.
Yeah.
Or it's like paid, but off the back of organic content. Yeah.
And so was that always at the beginning, like a long-term plan of yours around like when you started out, you're like, hey, eventually I want the business to be getting fed through social? Like, was that an objective at the beginning?
So I just put my faith in what people like Gary Vee were saying. And then I just constantly was seeing it reinforced by all these other brands all over the world, right? Personal brands all over the world, like your Hall Mosey's as such, and like your Stephen Bartlett's, all these people who like in I guess global relativity come out of nowhere. It was like you didn't hear about them, and all of a sudden they're everywhere. And I was like, I just continue to see it. And then even in the real estate space, like when I was 16, 17 years old, like Gavin Rubinstein, for example, was that one guy that everyone knew him because he had a personal brand in real estate. He wasn't the biggest real estate agent at the time, but everyone knew who he was.
Yeah.
And there's a million and one of those people. And that was the thing where I was like, fuck, all I got to do is just make sure that I stay at this and I continue to, build the brand, and the brand will end up feeding not just the business, but then also Jack Henderson, right? It's all the opportunities that come off the back of it. And then as you start to get more resources behind you and all the rest of it, it becomes easier, which is obviously what I've done now. But yeah, in real terms, like I'm only 28. It's just the beginning. I look at all these people who, this is the competitive, egotistical Jack Henderson coming out, and I'm like, fuck, no one's got a chance. Well, they don't, right? Like I'm 28. See a lot of guys, they're in their early to mid 30s, other people who have got bigger brands in their 40s. I'm like, mate, you give me 15 years to be where they are. And I'm like, fuck, it's game over.
It's true.
Yeah.
And you've put in the hard yard, like that conversation I was having. I was like, Jack's been doing this, correct me if I'm wrong, for like 4 years.
Longer than that.
Okay.
Before the content piece when I was in the real estate industry, yeah, that's probably 4 or 5 years. But then previous to that, like as soon as I bought my first property, that emailed Smart Property Investment. I was on that podcast. The property couch with Bryce Holdaway, Ben Kingsley. All the property podcasts before I was even in the industry, I was on there as an investor. So I probably did 20 podcasts before I got in the industry. And that was the building the brand bit, building the brand. People knew who I was. And then when I transitioned into the industry, hired my own team, and then obviously the content's just, blown up from there.
What's the process been like? Because I've been only doing it for 4 months, right? I'm way behind you, but I kind of feel like I was describing to someone the other day, it's a bit like starting a new business. All these learnings, you got to have discipline. It can be painful. You're ideating. So I guess my question to you is like, how has that process been for you around like just being so disciplined with creating content and just learning about it all?
I think, it's just a part of my day now. It's just normal. Like I just record content. I've gotten way more consistent at it now in terms of volume. And again, that's just because I was doing like one piece of content a day. And then I remember I watched a video online, a YouTube video of Hormozy. He paid Grant Cardone, I think it was $200,000 to have 2 1-hour sessions with him. And anyway, essentially the video was Hormozy was like, how are you fucking growing so quick? And he's like, oh, pull your profile up. So Hormozy pulled his up. He pulled his up. He's like, how many times you posted this week? He's like, 6 times. He's like, I posted 46 times. He's like, pull up YouTube, And then like that's where I got the volume piece. It's like, man, it's not just producing one bit of content every single day. It's like how much of that shit can you produce? And then once I heard that, I was like, fuck, I need to increase my volume now because I've got the consistency piece down pat, but it's like, well, how much can you do consistently? And Gary Vee talks about it like having more at bats, right? It's like if you hit 10 baseballs when you're in a baseball match, one of those is a home run. If you only hit one of those and didn't have a home run, then you wouldn't have had that shot. So the more that I can post and the better then the quality of the content, the better it's going to go.
Do you recall like rewinding back when you kind of made that mental decision that, property was just going to be this vehicle? I know you didn't have an intention to become a buyer's agent like 10 years ago, but you started investing, right, for yourself.
Yeah.
Do you remember the time where you're like, hey, I'm just going to start using property as a vehicle to start building my wealth?
Yeah, so I don't remember the exact point in time, but I remember, I've always been into learning about money. I've always loved, firstly, I love the things that money could buy. That was my first thing. I was like, oh, fuck, I'd love that car. I'd love that boat. I'd love that holiday. I'd love whatever it was. And then it was like, well, I love the money, but how am I actually going to get it? And that's when I started to research and found Chris Gray. Started to go to seminars and listening to every podcast under the sun. And that's when my interest in property really started. But I was only interested in it from an investment point of view. And then, I guess I went through and buying a couple of properties myself and then realized that, okay, well, you're not going to be able to build a huge portfolio if you're just a PAYG earning a standard income. And from there, that's when my brain ticked and went, okay, I need to earn more money. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to grow my portfolio. So how can I earn more money? And then that's when I've sort of realized that, okay, well, if I want to earn more money, I need to do something where I can control my income. Your ads popped up. Chris Gray was buyer's agent, was super interested in what he did. And then it all sort of fell into place. I tried to get a job with Chris for years and he would never give me a job.
Interesting.
Just because I was a client and he'd see me, he'd seen the loose side of Jack Henderson. He's like, man, I'm not letting you near my clients, not a chance.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was like it was a morphing of like investor, and then how can I make more money? Love property, always loved architecture, all that type of stuff. When I was young, I wanted to be an architect. Realized you had to go to uni for that, and I was like, fuck that. So it's always been there. I've always had an interest in real estate, but just in different facets of real estate, whether it's design, you know.
Do you still keep in contact with people in the mines that you were working with at the time?
Yeah.
Before you kind of left?
I mean, not so much, but like, you know, through social media, right? They all, I don't know how many people follow me, have become clients. We have a building company now. I've hired a lot of them inside of the building company. They've started their own businesses and are subcontracting now. So, there's a lot of people who, through all of the different, through civil construction, through mining, you know, I'm like this guy now.
This celebrity, they must be super inspired by what you've done. Like you were driving a tractor. I remember when we first spoke, you're on a tractor, I think, literally. And then like you've built this incredible company, you know, I think. Did you ever hear from them around that?
Yeah. I mean, and I actually struggle with it now, right? Because they knew the old me. A lot of people who meet me now don't know me as that guy, right? So or they don't see me in both lights. Where like people who knew me from back then, I think for me, I find it weird because I'm like, fuck, I was the same as you, like 6 years ago, you know, and now you're like coming to me for advice, and it feels a bit, I don't know, I feel a bit weird. Like I really struggle to work with like friends and people who know me. I much rather work with people who have no idea who I was prior to coming to me as a real estate guy.
Why?
I don't know. I really don't know. Like even when I get on calls with people, like, you know, I've got so many clients who like grew up with me, went to primary school with me, went to high school with me. And like when I tell you I was a different person back then, like I was fucking wild. I got in so much trouble with the law, with just in school. Like I was just a wild kid. And that's how everyone used to see me. I was like this. My friends' parents wouldn't let me go to their houses and stuff like that because I'd always cause trouble. And like I was just that kid. And there's probably in me a belief still that I'm still sort of that person, right? I don't have that with people who meet me now because they meet me as the current Jack Henderson. But there's people who know me, and then in my head I'm thinking like, you're asking me what would I do, advice, all the rest of it, but like deep down you know the kind of person I used to be. So it's a funny thing.
That's just part of your story. Like look at Wahlberg. Like I think he went to jail, Mark Wahlberg.
Man, I had a sauna the other day with his stunt double in the Gold Coast because he's staying on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he was wild, dealing drugs. I think he went to jail, but I guess it's all part of the journey. I think that's what makes it so exciting. It's that you don't have to be like you can just be whoever you want to be, and then you evolve. But I guess it's interesting to see where you've come now. So
yeah, it's fascinating. And like at the end of the day, a lot of these people that I'm helping or like, you know, that I talk to, I'm like, fuck, that was me. I could be the same, right? I could be living in just a normal house, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week in a job and not even know this life exists, right? And then it's like an unlock. You're like, fuck. It's a wild world out there. It's so big.
It's scary.
And it's you're like one decision away from making that a reality.
It's scary to think that people, unfortunately, don't ever get exposed to that other way of, I guess, living.
Crazy.
And building a career and doing, you know, something a bit differently outside of that norm, right?
Yeah, I mean, once you taste because you have freedom, right? Like the thing that I love now, and this goes back to me not giving a fuck, is like I don't need to listen to anyone, not one person. That's the most amazing thing. If you work for someone, most of the time you're not super pumped about your boss. They tell you to do something, and I used to have this. It's like that thing, and you're like, I'd love to tell you to get fucked, but I'm just gonna go do it. You know what I mean? Like, there's this like you feel like you're fucking held down, and then once you've got the capacity to know that you can make money without needing anyone else, you know, you've got financial capacity not to worry about little things here and there. There's like this. It's an amazing feeling.
I heard something whereby, you know, if you're being told, you know, basically what you got to wear to work, when you got to show up, really when you can go to holiday, like regardless if you're the CEO running a multi-billion-dollar company, like you aren't free. You don't have freedom.
That's right. Yeah. So that's the best thing about it. It's like at the end of the day, yeah, I don't have to listen to anyone.
Let's talk about Henderson. So one thing that I've observed, which is really, I think, fascinating, is you've crafted this new niche, I feel like, in the buyer's agent space. It's not like buying, like, I guess for context for people listening, a lot of investor BAs in Australia are buying, regional. They're buying positive cash flow. They're buying typically, I'd say, I mean, this is generalization, but like, let's say sub 700K.
Yeah.
You've come in, with your previous investment background, like mine, with buying blue chip. It's not positive cash flow, looking for cap growth. You've come in with a different investment philosophy, a strategy that you really believe in. You've done it for yourself, and you've productized it now. Like you've really crafted this new niche, and I want to talk about this Accelerator, and I want to talk about like the service offerings that you're providing, because I think it's fucking brilliant what you're doing. Run me through it.
Yeah, so it's been like a transition, right? It's like I've only been in the industry, 4 or so years. So you're trying to find your feet as you move through. I started out in that owner occupier, / investment eastern suburbs. Crushed that for like 18 months. But we did 150 transactions in the eastern suburbs in like the last year that I fully committed to that, which was crazy from zero. But then I was like, fuck, I don't really enjoy this all that much, because I was like, you're essentially just like a slave. They're like, hey, go and find me a $3.5 million house in Bondi. And I was like, I'm a bit over that. And then you're also like, you got to fucking play to real estate agency egos. And I was like, yeah, fuck that. Not me. So then moved into more of the investment space where, you're more the advisor. I'm speaking through my own experience, what's worked for clients and all the rest of it. But it was blue chip, but we didn't really have a product offering. It was like, come to us and we'll buy you a blue chip property. And then I guess that sort of developed now into, being able to buy assets in the best locations and then, add a significant amount of value to these properties through renovating, through developing, through building second dwellings, whatever it is on those properties. And it's always been my thought, because even with my first vision board, the fourth thing on the vision board, the first thing was to hit 350K in gross commission. Second thing was to hire my mum. Third thing was to have a $10 million portfolio. And the fourth thing just says Henderson Group. And the Henderson Group, in my eyes, was always like my development company, because I loved property and development. Even when I was in civil construction, I just was so fascinated by it. So I've always had this, idea of this is where the business will head. I just didn't know how it was going to go there. So now I guess it's moved into this place where, that's 60% plus of our business. It's like people come to us because they've got really strong capacity and they want to grow really quickly. So instead of just relying on the organic market growth, we buy them the best assets that they can buy. But instead of buying something that's finished, it's something that you couldn't actually live in. And then we'll go through and do a full renovation value add. We manage the whole process. We've got the building company.
What's the building company called?
Endeavour Build.
Endeavour Build, okay.
And then we've got development manager now, so we do all the approvals and we can help clients develop and project manage that whole process as well. And people love it. Like, it's dramatically changed our business. So, and again, like what I said at the start of the podcast, knowing where I want to go, like my idea for Henderson is not to be a buyer's agency. It's to be the Blackstone or BlackRock, of real estate in Australia to begin with, and then globally. So, and I'm doing a lot of work at the moment with some people. I'm working out how the best fund structure will work. So if we're raising money as opposed to just doing client services, how will it work? What do we need the IRRs to be inside of the fund and all the rest of it? But essentially this is it. Like, instead of us doing client work, we'll do exactly what we're doing now for clients, but more at scale inside of a fund.
I love it.
It's the morphing of that, right? Because there is only a certain amount of clients that you can service, right? Without then starting to run into major issues. So that model is scalable to an extent, but not to the extent that I want it to be.
So what are the service offerings? Like if I came into Henderson now,
Yep.
As a potential client, what can I?
So we've still got an owner-occupier offering.
Yep.
We've got a commercial offering.
Yep.
And then we've got our investment offering, and there's 3 tiers to that. So the Accelerator, which is the top tier of offering, where it's portfolio planning, finance strategy, structuring, and obviously we're working with the different stakeholders inside of people's journeys, accountants, brokers, all the rest of it. And then asset selection, location selection, full renovation and value add, and then obviously our goal is to then roll them into the next asset. And we can do all that within 6 months, as opposed to just buying something and waiting on the marketplace to give us the valuation we need. Then we've got our foundational offering, which is still everything that the top offering is, but it's no renovation. So for clients who maybe don't have the capacity to renovate, or there's no benefit in them renovating because maybe they don't have the serviceability to refinance out the equity when they're done. And then our incubator offering is for people just entering the marketplace. So maybe they don't have the capacity to, or the need for a portfolio plan. They don't have a very complex financial situation. So it's just acquisition only. 85 to 90% of our business is the top 2 tiers. Yeah.
I think this productization that you've created of this, Accelerate. It's Accelerate, right?
Accelerator,
sorry. I think it's just brilliant because it's not like it hasn't been done before where you buy a blue chip, it needs a reno, but you've just created this incredible offering and it's hard to execute on it well. And you've built together the team and it's effortless and you get the results. Like, I mean, I see them online, what you're getting for people. And it's just brilliant. I've been in this space since 2009, right? I haven't seen it before. Just haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think the hard thing is the execution piece, right? And I guess where I'm blessed because that's my background. Like, I'm not a builder, but I was in civil construction and mining and industrial development. Like, I know enough about the game. And, now we've got an awesome team now. And, we're just, that's our core. And people can make good money out of it. So it's been taken up much stronger than we thought it would be taken up. Well, I didn't really actually expect it. And then I actually look at the biggest companies in the world, for example, like even with Tesla and Musk, like he started really high ticket, right? It was like the Roadster. That was what he started. And then they get product market fit with the Roadster. And then he started to bring out the offerings underneath that. So it's essentially, what we're doing. Like our core offering is the Accelerator. But some people can't qualify for that or they can't afford it, but they still want it. But you start here and then you work up to the Accelerator. And then it also, it's really defined the clients we work with now. Because the service offering at recording this 45,000 plus GST, then you got to have enough to buy an 800,000 to $1 million property at a minimum. Then you're going to need to spend 250 on a renovation. So it's not for punters, right?
It's a certain caliber of person.
Yeah, that's right. It's like small business owners. It's people who are high paid, executives, salespeople, whatever it is. But you work with a good clientele.
But it's niche. I think it's great. I mean, I remember we were on a coaching call and you were talking to me about developing this offer. You're just like spitballing it to me. And then it's just like you've just gone and executed. And now it's like the core of you. It's just phenomenal. Like it's brilliant.
And I guess, talking about it high level, it seems like there's no issues, but there's always issues, right? Like you're trying to, because the thing we're struggling with now is we're with the client for so long. Like usually it's like you buy a property for a client, see you later. They go on, once you buy it, settle. But like we might spend 3 months looking for a property, then we settle, then we go through a 3 or 4 month renovation, then we've got asset management on the other end. So there's like so many points now when you can disappoint a client. Like that's the reality. And what do they say? It's like a loss is like 5 or 10 times as powerful as a positive. What's the thing? It's
I haven't heard that.
It's like when someone loses $20, it's 5 times more painful than if they were to pick up that same $20 and get it.
Okay.
So it's essentially if you let someone down, like if one area or one link of the chain is not at expectation, they can wreck the whole rest of the journey.
And that's why you just said earlier, the execution.
It's hard.
It's so hard. And that's why I think what you've developed is dynamite. And I think it's really hard to replicate.
For sure.
And you're just leading charge with it. I want to talk about resilience because I know last year was a tough year for you. Hardest. Like personally with your partner, professionally. So I just kind of wanted to unpack about, because I saw how you moved through that. And like to give just one quick example before you kind of run me through your experience with last year. I know that when that, for example, the investigation with ABC, which we'll talk about, happened. I mean, I recall like the next day you were presenting at a conference, and
that morning I was on the front page of the paper.
And then you're on the front, and you just showed up there.
I started the conference with going, I'm not sure if you've recently read the newspaper, but I've just been crowned the agent of influence.
and you nailed the present, and so anyway, there was just a few things that I kind of observed, and I was like, going, wow, this guy's resilient. So let's talk about 23 and just talk about some of the things that happened and kind of just how you moved through it.
So the hardest thing about 2023 is we come off a fucking bumper year. Like we were hammering. did lots of really cool shit, made a heap of money, served some really high profile clients, and I'd never experienced the dip. You know, like I was just like a rocket. I was like, this is never going to end. You know, and then the market changed, interest rates, all that shit happened. Business started to slow a little bit, and then you know we had some fuckwits in the industry who didn't like Jack Henderson and what he was about, and you know they tried to come after me, and they did a pretty good job. I'll give them that. They caused us some issues. So you know we got slammed in the media. The industry was like, you know, lots of people don't like me, which is fine. They were like all banding together, like fuck this guy, yeah. And then at the same token, or at the same time, sorry. I mean, that story I think come out in the March. We knew about it from December because there's all the, you know, they're trying to do interviews and all the rest of it. But then at the same time, I think it was like the March or the April, then my partner got diagnosed with breast cancer. The business fucking got hammered. So like, you know, our revenue was probably half of what it was the same time the year before, and interest rate. Like I was like, fuck me. And then like it was also a scary time too, because I'm like, it only takes, you know, one of the, like something, when you've only got a young business, it's not like you're sitting on millions of dollars worth of cash in the bank. Like, and I'm someone who's pretty aggressive, right? So like I bought a fuckload of property, highly leveraged, lots of expenses. Like I was going hard. So I was like, fuck, this is hard shit, you know? And then there's all those thoughts in your head like, oh, fuck, imagine that, just to top it off. Jack Henderson goes bankrupt. Imagine that. But I guess that's where the resilience piece comes from, because like they're the things that were playing in the back of my mind. I'm like, fuck, there's so many people out there that'd love to see you just fall now.
How did you, like, I'm just curious to know, like, how did you work through it? Because you're right, you're polarizing. Yeah. A lot of people want to see you fail.
All you got to do is read my TikTok comments.
Okay, you get roasted?
Oh, man.
They hate you because you're doing well. Okay, so I guess my question is, like, with obviously what was going on with your partner with cancer, professionally what was happening, you getting roasted in the media. Obviously, I think it'd be good to talk about the media in terms of what happened, because I believe the investigation, you got a letter from the OFT saying you've been cleared, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't do anything wrong.
You didn't do anything
wrong.
wrong.
The OFT said that. They give us what they call an education letter, which I can read the letter if you want, but it essentially just says, we've done your investigation. Thanks so much for participating and, you know, giving us all the information we need. There's no issues that you were doing nothing wrong.
Interesting.
That was it. There was no like undertakings. There was no fines. So, but you don't hear all that shit, right? So anyway, that was it. But I looked at two things separately. I was like, obviously my partner's health that's one issue we're dealing with, and that's obviously a much more severe issue than a business. So that was like a 12-month journey through radiation and chemo and operations and all the rest of it. And then, you know, I guess during the day I was dealing with how the fuck am I going to get out of this? So for the business side of things.
But you like big problems, you said earlier.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
So I guess how are you? I'm just curious to know, like, how were you working through it? Like were you just trying to stay positive? Like up here, were you collaborating with certain people? Like, was there anything? Or was it
so I mean, I've got some amazing people, you know, in my life. You're one of those people, and I was constantly on the phone with people talking, and like the hard thing and the thing that I was trying not to do was to give like the media and all that type of stuff any attention, right? It was an issue that we were dealing with, and you know, the story ran. The newspaper got a hold of it in Newcastle, and they probably ran it, you know, 4 or 5 times. Like I said, I was on the front cover and all the rest of it. But it wasn't like it dramatically changed our business in terms of, you know, we couldn't trade or anything like that. The issue was lots of people saw this in the media and they thought, fuck, why would we work with these guys? Like, look what the media's saying about them. So that was our issue. Then it was like our client acquisition dramatically decreased, which decreases revenue and all the rest of it. So all I was focused on was, who gives a fuck? Pick up the pieces, work out how we can get through this, and when you get through it, you know, show people that that it's just a little bump in the road, which is what I focused on. So and that's how the Accelerator all come about, because I was like, our cost per acquisition for a client dramatically increased, right? Because we were running paid ads at the time. They were working okay. When you can have it in the media, they no longer work okay. So all I was thinking was, okay, well, what we're charging clients at the moment and what we're paying to acquire those clients is losing us money. So I need to be able to charge people 2 or 3 times more than what I'm charging them right now, and we'll be okay. And that's where the Accelerator come from. And then it was like, okay, well, we've done some renovations in the past. We've never productized it. Did some videos online about renovations we were doing, and I just come up with the Accelerator strategy in my head, and that was it.
It's brilliant.
And then, we started to get momentum on that, and obviously my partner got through her operation and treatment, and that was all looking up. And then you just started to build momentum again. And again, it was just like the thing was a chip on the shoulder. I was like, there's certain people who, like, you hear what people say on the grapevine, and I was like, yeah, I'll fucking show you.
And you know what's interesting is, like, getting back to the word resilience, you obviously went through that. You mentioned your revenue halve, like there was a lot of chaos going on.
Well, to give context, July last year we did 335,000 in revenue. This July we just did just under 1.8 million.
And I mean, that's a definition of resilience. And like you ideated, you created, you redeveloped, you redefined how you wanted to do things through all that chaos.
Yeah.
And you've come out now, you've got the Accelerator. You're working like more on purpose. Like you actually care about I feel like you care about the Accelerator
I have more passion for it.
You can tell.
Yeah. Like I actually enjoy it. I know what we do is fucking incredible. We control the outcomes much more than just buying, in the marketplace and hoping and praying that things grow. And it's now given the business like more of an identity, and it's given us the ability to grow and move into other marketplaces. And this is just like the beginning because I can already see where it's going. And then off the back of that, I think my brands, like I think last year, if we're just talking followers, which I guess are vanity metrics, but I probably had maybe 10,000, 15,000 followers like this time last year. I think I'm sitting on like 75 now on Insta and 75 on TikTok.
It's ridiculous.
So, and I still get people like, trolling on there like, fucking look this guy up.
Well, I mean, again, because I know you, like I understand what I understand what you went through last year and how it affected you, your business. But I think what I get so inspired by, like personally, was I misunderstood you. You wrote me a message the other day saying I thought you did 1 million last month, and now you told me this one it's 1.8. Like I love that. Like, you've rebuilt your whole business and it's crushing it so much harder. It's like that struggle is the gift. Like you went through a lot of challenges personally, professionally, and then you turn that into opportunities and positives.
Yeah, and I just at that point in time, I was like, "Fuck." It's like a crossroads, right? It's like a sliding door moment where you can. There was parts of me that was like, "Fuck, maybe I just go and be a one-man band again. Can do a couple of $100,000 a month in revenue. Majority of it's profit. I can live a pretty good life." Or it was like I either had to really, really double down, and it's like, again, it's proving. Like I said at the start, it's like you said you wanted to do something. I've always had that goal of like, I want to have a multi-billion-dollar international organization. So I was like, do you really want that, or do you not want that? And that was it. And then I leveled up everything. I leveled up my fitness and my running. I wanted to really go hard in all areas of my life. So that's the decision I chose. Not without its challenges, obviously.
I always like to observe people like when shit's not going well, especially with my team members. Like say that you're having a bad month or there's a bad situation. It's like I always like to just read people just when things aren't good. Because when things are good, it's artificial. And just in my observation with like founders, just seeing what happens like in crises, around when things aren't going well, around what transpires. And I think it's brilliant how you pivoted, you've rebuilt the company. And I mean, you did 1.8 last month. Like, I mean, there's probably not a lot of people in real estate, right, who run offices of your size, like who are doing those numbers. And I mean, you're just warming up now. Like you're warming up into like, I think this new version of yourself. And so, I mean, like where do you see the revenue going? Like in forecasting, like do you see yourself doing 3 mil a month, 2.5? Like where do you see it going?
Well, now we've hit that. It's like I want to crack 2, right? But I think this financial year we'll hit somewhere between 20 and 25. And then who knows, right? Like our 3-year goal was 50 and our 5-year goal was 100. So when I said them, trust me, I was like, fuck, it seems like a long way away. But again, it's like once you start to, it's like you crack that code and you find what people call product market fit, and it's like all of a sudden just takes off. So
it's taken off. I mean, getting back to it again, I just want to reinforce this is you're not wearing your suits because you don't like suits. Either do I. That's why we dress like this. you're talking about shit you actually you care about online now, and it comes out. Like I see your stuff. Like, you can tell like you genuinely care about it, and you love it, right? And you're running a core part of your service now. With an offering that, again, you really you believe in a lot. And I guess it's just it's an example of like when you're actually working on purpose and you're doing shit you really care about. How like you talked about your followers growing from 10,000 to 75,000. Like, I think that's just a representation of like just people seeing the real Jack.
For sure. And it's exciting now to see as like where's it going to go, right? But I think now that we've found a segment of the marketplace that appreciates our offering, where the revenue now will really start to chunk out is as we start to do like larger developments. Instead of doing $250,000 renovations for clients, we're doing $2.5-3 million builds. We set up the fund model like that. That's where the ultimate scale will end up coming from. And then we've got asset management as well, which is a big plus for our clients, so they can keep everything under the one roof. So, yeah, I think it's fucking good times.
I want to touch just lastly on your fitness, because you're going hard. Like, what, you do 20 clicks a day?
This morning, yeah.
And I guess like what really, because I mean, I only realised like you were just doing. I mean, what did you do recently? You did some I had to like read it twice.
100 mile. I got another one of those in 2 weeks in Cairns.
It's 100 miles.
160 Ks, yeah.
160 Ks. So that was over how long?
27 hours it took me.
Of non-stop.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you got like your aid stations where you refill your waters and
but
shit.
You're not sleeping.
No.
Yeah. You're moving.
Yeah. And then again, like there's levels to everything, right? So 100 miles to someone who doesn't sound like he doesn't run, they're like, fuck, how does someone run 160 Ks? But at the event that I'm doing that at, 100 mile is the baby run.
I love that.
The 200 mile
it's all perspective.
So I get there, I'm like, fucking let's go 100 miles. And there's guys who've been running already for 2 days and they're already 100 miles in and they got 100 miles to go. So I've registered for the one in Western Australia in Perth. Not Perth, it's like south of Perth. It was a 200-mile run, which is in April. Did you start doing all this crazy running like when shit was not going well last year? Like, when did this start? No, so I was running up until that point. It's like I'd done quite a few marathons and all that type of shit, but I hadn't pushed it. That was the thing that I'd realised is like I set the marathon goal, and obviously to go from running 10Ks to running 42Ks is a big thing. But then when I got to a marathon, I never went over that. And that's where I found my issue is. And I always find that I'm the happiest when I'm constantly pushing, where I'm not just like sitting and being like complacent. So, as that stuff started to happen, I was like, fuck, I've leveled up to this point, but then I haven't pushed anything in my life any further. So that's when I was like, okay, what's the next thing? 100K. So I was like, okay, sweet, 100K run. Knocked out 100Ks in February of this year. That was my first one. And then I was like, fuck, what's the next thing? And then I was like scrolling online. It was like 100 miles. It was like 4 weeks away. I was like, oh, fuck, I'll do that. Bang, registered, did the 100 miles. Then I did a 100K after that, back to back. So I did 100 miles a Saturday, flew back to Sydney. And then the following Saturday, I did a 100K run in the Blue Mountains, which has got 4,500 meters of elevation. So it's like half of Mount Everest. And then I went to Europe. And then I was like, when I come back, so I got a 100-mile run now in August, so the third week of August. And I got a 200K run where I'm running Newcastle to Sydney in October. And then I'll do the 200-mile. But then, that's the thing with when you get to different levels, it's like all you got to do is look up, right? Because there's always someone that's doing more, and it's that chase. That's what drives me now. Yeah. Is it ego though? Do you feel like a bit of for the running, or like is it like what's behind it? So there's a few things. Yeah, absolutely. There's ego behind it. I really like jamming it down people's throats. I'm sure. There's a part of me, and I can't remember who I said this to, but there's a part of me that, enjoys when people go, fuck, I wish I could do that. He's doing everything that I can't. That's just people who don't like me, that's just, but there's also like, I think there's so many people that, I've observed this, I've had conversations with lots of people, and as they get to a point, talk about founders that exit a business, how often, and I've been talking to Frank Grief about this a lot. How often when people exit out of businesses do you then see that they grow a bigger business a second time around? Almost never. Because they exit and they're like, oh, I swear I've done it once. And they go do something else because they have enough money never to do it again. Very, very rare. All the people on the top of all the rich lists around the world have been running those companies forever. They've never exited. True?
True.
So
A lot of founders, though, do start other companies, though.
but they're never as big as their first one.
That's true.
Very rarely. You know, like Jack Dorsey would be one of the most,
Yeah.
you know,
Elon Musk.
But Elon Musk has never exited.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He's still running.
Still, yeah.
So like a lot of founders, right, they have that purpose from the get-go to get that thing that they want, which is the financial freedom and all the rest of it, and then they exit and they can never do it again. And that happens in all areas of your life. People, how often do you see people set a marathon goal in running, if we're talking about running, and then once they hit a marathon, they're like, oh, I've ticked that box now, what do I do now?
Yeah. The disease of more.
Well, they don't do anything else. It's like they hit the pinnacle. It's like, why the fuck would you make that the pinnacle? So like, I think the thing that I really, and I've discovered this about myself is like when I do something, then I'm like, okay, I want that next thing. And I guess it is a disease of more at the same token, but why would you limit yourself?
Yeah.
Because you know you can do it then. So if you do another marathon, after you've done a marathon, it's not that impressive because you've already done it. Your brain knows it.
But you're challenging yourself. Like you genuinely, like you're taking on like a very hardcore challenge. And I guess you probably just want to prove
Because there's
yourself.
no better feeling than going, I can do that. Because lots of people say, yeah, I could fucking do that. And you go, why don't you do it? Oh, I don't need to. But when you actually do it, like, mate, when I finished that 100-mile run, it was probably like up there with one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life. It was fucking the worst pain the last 20, 30 Ks, like the worst. But when you come over the line, it's just like this euphoric, like, fuck, I actually did it. So I enjoy that, you know, like challenge, doing things that you just keep leveling up. That's what I think is cool.
I said the disease of more, and I just want to give context to that because listen, I think it's great what you're doing. I don't want to.
It's true though.
I'm not. It's more around. I don't know. This is my own experience. Maybe you can relate to it. Is like it's around you do something, then you become unsatisfied, and that disease of more. You just want to keep needing to do new things to feel fulfilled. That I feel like is the disease of more versus like I have met people who they do new things, but like they're very centered in themselves. Like they don't need to do that to become happy or to, you know, to feel better about themselves or to boost their ego. But they just do it in isolation as like, let's say a challenge.
I think I'm still working through that because there's definitely like an ego element attached to it for sure. But at the same token, I think it's very easy once you do something then to not like, oh, what do I do next? You know, like you look around. And when you get bored, that's when you usually, you know, go looking for other things that are maybe not as good.
Yeah.
So, but it's good to challenge the brain.
Jack Henderson, love this chat, brother.
Mate, thank you.
Well done. $1.8 million months. Congratulations, man.
Thanks, mate.
You deserve it.
I'll come back on when we're hitting 18 a month.